The air inside the Marine Corps briefing hall was heavy with discipline and expectation. New recruits and seasoned operators filled the room, their uniforms crisp, their boots shining under the harsh fluorescent lights. At the front stood a woman, calm, silent, her presence commanding without needing to raise her voice. She wasn't boasting, she wasn't trying to prove herself. Yet her very stillness seemed to carry weight, and that unsettled some of the men. When the Marine colonel in charge turned to her, his sharp eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You. State your call sign." His voice cracked like a whip across the room. He expected hesitation, he expected fear, maybe even confusion. But what he got instead was a quiet, steady reply that made every sound in the hall collapse into silence. "Phantom 7, she said. The colonel froze. His jaw tightened, his face drained of color, and his hand that was once firm on the podium curled slowly into a fist. Everyone in the room shifted uneasily, not knowing why that name seemed to strike like lightning in the heart of a battle-hardened officer. If you believe in courage, second chances, and the hidden strength inside every soul, then please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Armed Forces Stories. Your support helps bring these powerful, untold stories to life. Years before this moment, before she was reduced to a stranger in a briefing hall, she had been more than just another soldier. Her real name had been buried under missions that no official document dared to mention, her history stitched together only by scars across her body and whispers among those who'd seen her in action. She had been recruited into a shadow division when she was barely 20, her code name whispered through the darkness of foreign battlefields. Phantom 7 wasn't just a title. It was a legend. Operators spoke of her the way ordinary people speak of myths, an unseen ghost who appeared where defeat was certain, turning the tide with precision, grit, and sacrifice. She didn't crave medals, she never spoke of victories, but there were men alive who owed their last breath to her presence. And yet, like most legends, she vanished. Wounded, broken, and lost, she stepped away from the uniform when the missions grew heavier than her own heart. Years later, the same military that once used her name like a weapon seemed to forget her. Or perhaps they wanted to. Now, standing in front of the colonel, she wasn't a ghost anymore. She was flesh and blood, visible, undeniable. And the colonel knew exactly what that meant. The recruits didn't understand the tension. To them, she was just another instructor, another pair of eyes evaluating their worth. But in the colonel's silence, there was recognition. He had seen Phantom 7 before, though not up close. He had seen the aftermath of the missions she left behind. He had read the impossible reports that intelligence officers refused to sign their names to. And deep down, he had doubted she was even real. Now she was standing not 10 feet from him. The training hall grew heavy, suffocating. The colonel struggled to hold his composure, but the young soldiers began to notice. They whispered, exchanged confused glances, and stared at the woman who had just named herself like she carried no burden at all. She wasn't trying to shame the colonel. She wasn't trying to relive her past. She had said her call sign because it was the truth. And truth, in this hall, was more dangerous than any weapon. Her story wasn't one of constant triumph. She had been broken many times, betrayed by her own body, by missions gone wrong, by the faces of comrades she couldn't save. Nights spent in silence haunted her, every scar a memory of someone who didn't make it back. The military loved its heroes, but it often discarded them when the spotlight faded. And still, here she was, called back to serve, because even when the uniform was heavy with disappointment, her heart refused to stop fighting for something greater. The colonel finally found his voice, but it was unsteady. Dismissed. It wasn't for her, it was for the recruits. They filed out, unsure of what had just passed, but knowing they had witnessed something extraordinary. When the room was nearly empty, the colonel stepped closer. His eyes weren't filled with arrogance anymore, they were filled with something else, fear, respect, and perhaps shame. "I thought you were gone," he muttered, just above a whisper. Her answer was simple, carrying the weight of years of silence. Phantoms don't die. They fade until they're needed again. From that day forward, whispers returned. The recruits talked about her with reverence, the way soldiers tell tales to pass strength through the ranks. The colonel, once so commanding, seemed more careful in her presence, as though reminded that true power isn't loud, it's quiet, steady, and undeniable. She didn't boast of her past. She didn't need to. Her presence alone was enough. And though she carried pain that no one in the room could ever imagine, she also carried something else, hope. Because in her silence, in her scars, and in the calm way she carried the name Phantom 7, there was proof that legends aren't born. They are made in the shadows, in sacrifice, and in the will to keep standing no matter how many times you're broken. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Armed Forces Stories. Your engagement helps us keep these powerful and inspiring stories alive for the world to hear. Tell us in the comments below, what does Phantom 7 mean to you? Does it remind you of hidden strength, or of someone in your life who fights battles quietly? We'd love to read your thoughts.